Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so happy you're here tonight. Before we get started, let's give everyone another minute or two to join us. And while we're waiting, please pop a message in the chat and let me know where you're joining from tonight. I'd love to see where everyone is tuning in from. Oh, lovely. Hello, Gemma. Oh, we've got London, New York, Berlin, Scotland as well. Amazing. Oh, hello, Jessica. Lovely to have you here. It's always so nice to see people joining from different parts of the UK and around the world. So thank you so much for spending your evening with me. We'll get started in just a moment. And tonight we're going to talk about something I know so many women struggle with. Maybe you've been eating well, maybe you're staying active, maybe you're doing all the things you've been told should work, and yet somehow the weight keeps creeping up, your energy crashes halfway through the day, and the cravings seem to have a mind of their own. If that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. And what I hope you will take away from tonight is this, that your body is not broken. There's a reason this is happening, and by the end of this masterclass, you will understand what's really going on and what you can do to support your body naturally. So please grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Before we dive into the science, I want to start with a simple question. Does any of this sound familiar? Maybe you've noticed that the weight seems to be creeping up around your middle, even though you're eating well and trying to stay active. Perhaps your energy feels fine in the morning, but by lunchtime or early afternoon, you reaching for another coffee or something sweet just to get through the rest of the day. Maybe the cravings hit every evening, and what's frustrating is that they don't feel like a choice, they feel biological. You tell yourself you'll be good tonight, and then somehow you find yourself standing in the kitchen looking for something sweet. Maybe you're exercising consistently, perhaps you're walking more, going to the gym, doing classes, trying harder than ever before, and yet your body doesn't seem to be responding the way it used to. Or perhaps you had blood tests done and you've been told everything looks normal, which is quite common. But deep down, you know something doesn't feel right. You know your body, you know your energy, you know something has changed. And one of the most common things I hear from women is I keep waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. Not because they're anxious, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because their body is trying to tell them something. So please let me know in the chat. Type yes if any of this sounds familiar. Yes, yes. I want you to know that if you're nodding along right now, you're absolutely not alone. In fact, these are some of the most common experiences women have when the hormones start shifting. And tonight we're going to talk about why this happens. So a lot of yeses coming through. So you're definitely in the right place tonight, and I promise you, by the end of this masterclass, the symptoms will make a lot more sense. So before we go any further, if we haven't met before, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Aleksandra Ostrowska-Wiwer. I'm a biologist, certified herbalist, naturopath, and menopause coach. And over the years, I've supported more than 400 women through various hormonal and health changes and challenges. And today my work focuses largely on helping women understand their bodies and support their hormones naturally. But the reason I'm so passionate about this topic isn't just because of my qualifications. It's because I've experienced these struggles myself. As a teenager, I had significant hormonal issues. At the time, nobody called it that. But all I knew was that something wasn't right. My periods came every 3 months. I struggled with my weight despite eating well. I was a competitive swimmer and extremely active. Uh, I was everything I was told I should be doing, yet my body wasn't responding the way it should. And perhaps the most frustrating part was that my blood tests were often described as a normal, uh, but I didn't feel normal. I knew something wasn't right. Thankfully, my mom took me to a natural medicine practitioner who looked at the bigger picture rather than, just individual test results. And for the first time, somebody started asking why the symptoms were happening instead of simply telling me everything was fine. And that experience completely changed the direction of my life. It's one of the reasons I became so interested in biology, herbal medicine, and women's health, But my story doesn't stop there. Even as an adult, with all the knowledge I have now, I experienced a situation that reminded me just how connected our hormones, stress levels, and weight can be. Because almost exactly a year ago, I gained around 8 kilograms in less than 3 months, and honestly, it was incredibly frustrating because I was exercising exactly as I always had. I was eating the same foods. Nothing significant had changed in my routine. Yet my body was changing rapidly. When I investigated further, my cortisol levels were significantly elevated, and so was my prolactin. Now, prolactin is a hormone that many people associate with pregnancy and breastfeeding, but elevated prolactin can also influence appetite, metabolism, energy levels, and weight regulation. And it often rises in response to chronic stress and nervous system dysregulation and overload. And when prolactin and cortisol remain elevated for long periods of time, the body can become much more focused on survival than on optimal metabolic function. In my case, the root cause wasn't lack of discipline. It wasn't eating too much. It wasn't because, I suddenly became lazy. It was because my nervous system was overwhelmed. I was working long hours. I wasn't sleeping enough. I wasn't recovering properly. And my body was simply carrying too much stress. So instead of focusing on eating less or exercising more, I started focusing on the foundations, supporting my nervous system, improving recovery, supporting blood sugar balance, prioritizing sleep, and following the same principles that I now teach inside my 4-week hormone reset program. And within a few months, my weight returned to normal. But perhaps more importantly, I felt like myself again. And that's the message I want to leave you before we continue. Tonight, it's not about, chasing a perfect body. It's not about trying to look 20 years younger. Because our bodies naturally change throughout life, and that's completely normal. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is health, the goal is energy, the goal is feeling comfortable and confident in your own skin. Because I know that unwanted weight gain can affect so much more than, just a number on the scales. It can affect confidence, self-esteem, relationship with food, and how we feel when we look in the mirror. And with summer approaching, I want every woman here to feel informed, empowered, and supported. That's exactly why we're having this conversation tonight. So let's dive into what's really happening inside the body when hormones start shifting and what we can do to support it. But before we move on, I want to make something very clear. Tonight isn't only for women in perimenopause. You don't have to be, missing periods, experiencing hot flashes, or officially in menopause for this information to apply to you. The reality is that hormonal changes don't suddenly begin on, your 50th birthday. Hormones are changing through our lives. And for many women, some of these shifts start much earlier than they realize. In our 30s, and especially after 35, we often begin to notice subtle changes. Recovery takes a little longer. Sleep becomes more important. Stress affects us more. These strategies that work in our 20s don't always work in the same way anymore. Now, I don't say this to scare anyone, quite the opposite. I say this because understanding what is happening allows us to work with our bodies instead of constantly fighting against them. And what we're discussing tonight is relevant for almost every woman, whether you are 35, 45, 55 or beyond, because these principles are rooted in physiology. They are about how hormones influence blood sugar, stress responses, sleep, metabolism, appetite, energy production, and all of these systems are connected. And one of the biggest mistakes I see women make is assuming that because they're eating the same food and doing the same workouts, they should get the same results they got 10 or 20 years ago. But biology, unfortunately, doesn't work like that. As our hormonal environment changes, our body responds differently. And the first thing I want you to understand is that estrogen doesn't simply decline in a straight line. Many women imagine hormones gradually dropping, year after year. But in reality, especially during the years leading up to menopause, estrogen often fluctuates. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes lower, sometimes changing dramatically from one month to the next one. And because estrogen influences insulin sensitivity, appetite regulation, sleep, mood, inflammation, and even where we store body fat, those fluctuations can affect many different symptoms at the same time. The second thing we often see is a gradual shift in fat distribution. This doesn't mean weight gain is unavoidable, but it does mean the body may become more likely to store fat around the abdomen rather than the hips and thighs. This one reason many women tell me I weigh the same, but my body shape has changed, or I've only gained a few pounds, but everything seems to be settling around my middle. And finally, perhaps the most important message of all, the same inputs no longer create the same outputs, the same breakfast, the same workout, the same stress level, the same amount of sleep, the same calorie intake. All of these things can produce a different response than they did 10 years ago. And please remember, that's not weakness, it's not laziness, it's not lack of willpower, it's biology. Your body is not broken, it's responding to a hormonal environment that has never experienced before. And once we understand that, we can stop blaming ourselves and start supporting the body in the way it actually needs and deserves. And this brings us to one of the biggest drivers of hormonal weight gain that almost nobody talks about properly, blood sugar. So let's talk about one of the biggest hidden drivers behind cravings, energy crashes, and stubborn weight gain, and that is blood sugar. When most people hear the term blood sugar, they immediately think about diabetes. But blood sugar affects every single one of us, every day, every meal, every cravings, every energy crash, every afternoon slump. And very often, women who tell me they have no energy, constant cravings, and weight gain actually have a blood sugar problem long before they have a disease. So let's have a look at a very common example. Sorry, I need to take a sip. So imagine you wake up in the morning. You are busy, maybe you're rushing to work, maybe you're looking after children, maybe you simply don't feel hungry. So you grab a coffee and go with your day. At first you feel fine. In fact, you might even feel energized. And the reason is because caffeine stimulates the release of cortisol and adrenaline. And these hormones helps mobilize stored energy. But here's the problem. Your body hasn't actually received any fuel. It has only borrowed energy. As the morning goes on, cortisol remains elevated and blood sugar becomes less stable. You might feel focused for a while, but eventually the body starts looking for a quick source of energy. And if lunch is delayed, which sometimes happens, or lunch is mostly carbohydrates without enough protein, blood sugar can become even more unstable. And that's when many women experience what I call the 2 p.m. crash. Suddenly you can't focus, you feel tired, you need another coffee, you start thinking about chocolate or something sweet. And this isn't because you're weak, it's because your brain runs primarily on glucose. And when blood sugar drops so quickly, the brain sends a very powerful message. Find energy now. This survival biology, no lack of discipline. So now let's talk about evening cravings. How many of you feel perfectly fine all day and then around 7 or 8 p.m. suddenly want everything sweet in the house? Many of you. Again, this isn't usually a willpower problem. Very often it's the result of unstable blood sugar throughout the day because your body has spent hours trying to compensate, and by evening it's looking for a quick source of energy. On top of that, fluctuating hormones can influence neurotransmitters like serotonin, which can make cravings feel even stronger during hormonal transitions. And another thing I hear all the time is, why is all the weight settling around my middle? And This is where blood sugar and cortisol begin working together. When blood sugar is constantly, rising and falling, insulin levels are often elevated more frequently. And when insulin is elevated alongside chronic stress, the body becomes more likely to store fat around the abdomen. This one reason calorie restriction alone often doesn't solve the problem, because the issue isn't just calories. The issue is how the body is responding to those calories. And finally, let's talk about waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. That is incredibly common. If blood sugar drops too low overnight, the body may release cortisol and adrenaline to bring it back up. Essentially, the body creates its own internal alarm system, and suddenly you're awake, wide awake at 3 a.m. Not necessarily because you're anxious, but because your body is trying to protect you. Now, this doesn't mean every 3 a.m. waking is caused by blood sugar. There can be many reasons, but blood sugar instability is one of the most overlooked contributors. So if there's one thing I want you to remember from this, it's this: cravings are often a biological signal. Energy crashes are often a biological signal. And your body is constantly communicating with you. The goal isn't to fight those signals. The goal is to understand what they're trying to tell us. And one of the biggest things they often telling us is that your blood sugar needs more support. But blood sugar is only one piece of the puzzle, because another major reason women start holding weight differently is something almost everyone has heard of, but very few people truly understand. It's cortisol. So let's talk about cortisol. And I want to start by saying something that may surprise you. Cortisol is not the enemy. In fact, cortisol is one of the most important hormones in the human body. Without cortisol, we wouldn't wake up in the morning, we wouldn't be able to regulate blood sugar, we wouldn't be able to respond to stress, we wouldn't be able to fight infection or inflammation properly. Healthy cortisol is essential for life. The problem isn't cortisol itself. The problem is when cortisol remains elevated for too long, or when our natural cortisol rhythm becomes disrupted. And I often think of cortisol like a fire alarm. Sorry. If there's a genuine emergency, we want the alarm to go off. That's helpful. But if the alarm is going off all day, every day, eventually it becomes a problem. And unfortunately, modern life gives the body many reasons to keep sounding that alarm. Poor sleep, emotional stress, work pressure, financial worries, skipping meals, too much caffeine, blood sugar crashes, overexercising, constant busyness, inflammation, and so on. So the body doesn't always distinguish between these stressors. It simply recognizes that something requires attention and adaptation. Now, many of you, I think, heard of me mention earlier that about a year ago I gained almost 8 kilograms in less than 3 months. At the time I was exercising, I was eating well, I was doing all the things that should have worked. But when I looked deeper, my cortisol was significantly elevated. And when I reflected honestly on my lifestyle, it made perfect sense. I was working too much, sleeping too little, trying to do everything. And my nervous system never really had a chance to recover. And that's something I see all the time with women. They often think they need more discipline, more exercise, a stricter diet, when actually what they need is more recovery. Because when cortisol remains elevated for long periods of time, several things start to happen. The body becomes more likely to store fat around the abdomen. Blood sugar becomes harder to regulate. Cravings become stronger. Sleep quality declines. Energy drops. And over time, insulin signaling can become less efficient. In other words, the body starts prioritizing survival over optimization. And from an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. Because if the body believes resources are limited or stress is high, it wants to conserve energy. It wants to protect you. It doesn't know you're trying to fit into a pair of jeans, for summer. it thinks it's helping you survive. And this is also why more exercise is not always the answer. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Exercise is one of the best things we can do for our health, and I highly recommend, especially strength workout. But what I'm saying is that more is not always better, especially when the body is already overwhelmed. If you're sleeping 5 hours a night, living on caffeine, skipping meals and feeling exhausted, adding more intense exercise can sometimes increase the stress load even further. And the goal isn't to punish the body into changing. The goal is to create an environment where the body feels safe enough to respond. And that's a very different approach, particularly for women over 35 during perimenopause and beyond. So when it comes to cortisol, I don't want you to live tonight thinking cortisol is bad. Absolutely not. I want you to live thinking cortisol is essential, but my body also needs periods of recovery, nourishment, and safety, because that's where all real healing and real metabolic health begin. Um, so now let's talk about one of the most popular topics in nutrition right now, which is protein. Everywhere you look, there are high protein recipes, high protein yogurts, high protein snacks, high protein meals, plans, etc. And while some nutrition trends come and go, this is one trend that actually makes a lot of sense, especially for women over 35, especially during perimenopause and beyond, because protein isn't just about building muscle. Protein is literally the building material for the body. Every cell in your body relies on protein. Your muscles are made from protein, your skin is made from protein, your hair is made from protein, your nails are made from protein. Many enzymes, hormones, and neurotransmitters are made from amino acids, which come from protein. In other words, protein isn't just a fitness nutrient, it's a survival nutrient. And one of the reasons protein becomes more important as we age is because our bodies become less efficient at building and maintaining muscle tissue. And this process is completely normal. As hormones begin to change, women naturally become more vulnerable to losing lean muscle mass. And muscle matters. Not because we're trying to look like bodybuilders, but because muscle is metabolically active tissue. The more healthy muscle mass we maintain, the better our metabolism tends to function, the better we handle blood sugar, the better we age, the stronger and more independent we remain. So protein also helps us feel satisfied after meals. This one reason a protein-rich breakfast often reduces cravings later in the day. And this brings me to a very recent personal experience, because I've always considered myself as a healthy eater. I've always eaten breakfast. I've always included protein in my meals. And if you'd asked me a month ago whether I was eating enough protein, I would definitely have said yes. But when I started preparing for this masterclass, I became curious. So I downloaded the app called MyFitnessPal. This is not the advert, by the way. But I simply wanted to see how much protein I was actually eating, not what I thought I was eating, what I was generally eating. And honestly, I was surprised. Even with all my knowledge and experience, I wasn't eating as much protein as I thought. And for the next 2 weeks, I made a conscious effort to increase my protein intake. I wasn't counting calories. Personally, I'm much more interested in nutrients than calories. Although if somebody enjoys tracking calories and finds it helpful and useful, that's absolutely their choice and it's absolutely fine. But I simply focus on making sure I hit my protein target consistently. And what happened? Within 2 weeks, I lost around 2 kilograms without changing my exercise, without changing my routine, without cutting foods, without feeling deprived. I was eating the same types of foods, just as in slightly different proportion. And that's something I see all the time with women. They often under-eating protein without realizing it. So please add proteins to your meals, especially for your breakfast. So now I have to mention about the exercising, because many women have been taught that The answer is simply more cardio. I was the same. More running, more spinning classes, more hours on treadmill. Cardio absolutely has benefits. It supports cardiovascular health, it improves fitness, it can improve mood and insulin sensitivity. But when it comes to body composition, metabolism, and healthy aging, strength training deserve much more attention. Why? Because strength training helps preserve and build lean muscle mass, and muscle is one of the biggest predictors of metabolic health as we age. This is why I generally encourage women to think of strength training as the foundation and cardio as kind of supplement, not the other way around. Combination of both is ideal. But if I could only choose one for long-term metabolic health during hormonal transition, I would choose strength training every time. And now the question that comes up to my mind, the question that I get all the time is how much protein should I actually be eating? And the answer depends on age, on your body size, activity levels, and goals. But generally speaking, most women are eating less than they need. For healthy adults, current evidence suggests a minimum of around 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. However, many experts in health, aging, menopause, and body composition recommend closer to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilograms of body weight daily, especially for active women and women in middle life. So, for example, a woman weighing 70 kilograms may benefit from somewhere between approximately 84 and 112 grams of protein per day, and that's often much more than women realize. So, as a little gift for joining me today, after this masterclass, you will receive an email with a resource that explains protein requirements in more detail, including simple ways to increase protein intake without, making meals complicated. Because sometimes one small change can create a really big difference. And for many women, protein is one of those changes. Before we move on, I have a quick question for you, and I want you to be honest. Which of these have you tried? Have you cut your calories significantly? Have you added more cardio? Maybe more high intensity classes? Maybe you tried fasting? Have you bought supplements that promise amazing results and then did absolutely nothing? Or are you still trying to figure it all out? Please go ahead and type A, B, C, D, E, or F in the chat, and let's see what comes up. Oh wow, lots of E's coming through, a few of A's, lots of B's as well, quite a few people saying F. Honestly, none of this answer surprises me because most women are trying incredibly hard. The problem is really, a lack of effort. In fact, many women are working harder than ever. They're eating less, they're exercising more, trying new supplements, trying new diets, trying fasting, trying detoxes, trying all the things, and yet the results don't match the effort. And that's exactly why I wanted to create this masterclass, because most women have been taught how to lose weight. Very few women have been taught how to support a changing hormonal environment. And those are two different things. What often works in your 20s doesn't necessarily work in your 40s or 50s. Not because your body is failing you, because your body has different priorities. If your nervous system is overloaded, if your blood sugar is unstable, if you're not recovering properly, then simply eating less and exercising more often isn't enough. And sometimes it can even make things worse. But the good news is that once we understand what's actually driving the symptoms, we can stop guessing. And that's what we're going to talk about next, because there are a few key foundations that make a much bigger difference than another diet or another supplement. So everything we've talked about so far leads us to this. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see women make is chasing symptoms instead of supporting the systems that are creating those symptoms. So please think about it. We experience cravings, so we try more willpower. We gain weight, so we cut calories. We are tired, so we drink more coffee. We don't see results, so we buy another supplement. And then we wonder why nothing changes. The problem is that the body doesn't work in isolated pieces. Everything is connected. Your hormones are connected to your nervous system. Your nervous system is connected to your blood sugar. Your blood sugar affects your sleep. Your sleep affects your cortisol. And cortisol affects almost everything else we've discussed tonight. That's why I believe the order matters. And honestly, this is the exact framework I wish someone had taught me years ago. Because most women try cut calories, do more cardio, buy random supplements, feel frustrated. But the body, in reality, needs a completely different sequence. So let's walk through these sequences. The first step is always calming the nervous system. This comes before everything else, because if the body constantly feels stressed, threatened, or overwhelmed, it will struggle to respond to any intervention. You can have perfect diet, perfect supplements, the perfect exercise routine, but if your stress response is constantly activated, progress becomes much harder. The second step is stabilizing blood sugar. This is where protein becomes incredibly important. Balanced meals, enough protein, enough fiber, not skipping meals, not relying on caffeine to get through the day. Because stable blood sugar creates stable energy, and stable energy creates a more supportive hormonal environment. The third step is supporting sleep. Now I know it sounds obvious, but sleep is one of the most powerful metabolic tools we have. While we sleep, the body regulates appetite hormones, repairs tissues, supports insulin sensitivity, resets the nervous system, and regulates cortisol rhythms. So sleep isn't a luxury, it's a biology, and we need it. The fourth step is supporting hormone metabolism. This is where we start thinking about things like fiber, veggies, gut health, liver support, regular bowel movements, and specific herbs when appropriate. Because hormones don't just need to be produced, they also need to be metabolized and cleared efficiently. And finally, step 5, movement, but supportive movement. Not punishment, not exercising because we hate our bodies, not trying to burn off every meal. Movement that actually supports the body. Walking, strength training, mobility, enjoyable exercises. Because by this point, we've already created a much stronger foundation. So now I want you to notice something. Weight loss isn't actually step 1. It's the result of the first 4 steps being supported. And this is why so many women get stuck. They trying to force step 5 before they've addressed step 1 to 4. And then they blame themselves when it doesn't work. But once we understand the order, everything starts making much more sense. And the beautiful thing is that none of these steps are extreme. They simply give the body what it has been asking for all along. So now once the foundations are in place, herbs can become incredibly powerful allies, not because they replace the foundations, but because they help support the system we've been talking about all evening. So as you know, I'm a herbalist, and because of that, herbs are one of the most important tools I use in my work. Not because herbs are magic, not because one cup of tea will suddenly solve years of hormonal imbalance, but because plants contain compounds that can generally support many of the systems we've been talking about tonight. The nervous system, blood sugar regulation, stress resilience, digestion, liver function, inflammation, and hormone metabolism. And before we go any further, I want to make something very clear. Every woman is different. The reason one woman is struggling with weight gain may be completely different from another. One woman may have poor sleep, another may be dealing with chronic stress, another may have blood sugar instability, another may be under eating protein, another may simply be exhausted and depleted. That's why there's no single best herb for everyone. Please remember that. The goal is always to understand the person first, the root causes. But if I had to choose 6 of the most useful, evidence-informed and widely available herbs for supporting women through hormonal transition, struggling with weight gain, this would definitely be on my list. So let's start with ashwagandha. I think everyone heard about ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is probably one of the most researched adaptogens available today. Its primary role is supporting the body's stress response. Do you remember when we spoke about cortisol earlier? So ashwagandha doesn't switch cortisol off. That's not what we want. Instead, it helps the body adapt to stress more efficiently. It's particularly helpful for women who feel constantly overwhelmed, exhausted, anxious, or stuck in that weird but tired state. Women who are running on adrenaline all day and then can switch off at night. This really helpful, useful herb. And next one is lemon balm. I absolutely love lemon balm. I've got lemon balm here today. It's one of my favorite herbs for modern women. Many women think their problem is hormones, but often the nervous system is playing a huge role behind the scenes. Lemon balm gently calms the nervous system, supports relaxation, and can be particularly helpful for emotional eating, stress eating, evening cravings, and poor sleep. It's one of those herbs that makes you feel like you can finally take a deep breath. Next one is Ceylon cinnamon. Now this is very different herb because cinnamon isn't primarily working on stress. It's working directly on blood sugar regulation. And remember what we discussed earlier. Many cravings aren't actually about lack of willpower. They are a signal that blood sugar may be unstable. And Ceylon cinnamon can help support more stable glucose responses after meals and may reduce some of the peaks and crashes that contribute to cravings and energy dips. Just a quick note here, when I say cinnamon, I specifically mean Ceylon cinnamon rather than cassia cinnamon, which is what most people find in supermarkets. So please pay attention to get Ceylon cinnamon. Then we've got nettle. And nettle is one of the most underrated, I think, herbs in women's health because many women are not just stressed, they are depleted, they are exhausted, they are under recovered, they run on empty. And nettle is incredibly nourishing. It's rich in minerals and works more like a food than a medicine, sometimes called a superfood. I often describe it as a herb that helps fill the bucket rather than constantly taking from it. It's especially useful for women who feel drained, fatigued, or nutritionally depleted. Another great herb is milk thistle. When people hear liver support, they often think detoxes and just cleanses. That's not what we're talking about here. The liver plays a critical role in processing hormones. It also helps process toxins, medication, and many byproducts produced by the body. And milk thistle helps support healthy liver function and healthy hormone metabolism, which is really important. And finally, my beloved dandelion. It's another incredibly useful and widely available herb. Dandelion root supports digestion, bile flow, and liver function. Dandelion leaf specifically can also support fluid balance. It's rich in potassium. Many women notice they feel puffy, sluggish, or bloated during hormonal fluctuations, and dandelion can be a wonderful herb for supporting this process naturally. Now, do I think everyone needs all these herbs? Absolutely not. Remember, herbs work best when they match the person, and perhaps the most important thing I want you to take away from this section is that herbs work best when the foundations are already in place. The best ashwagandha in the world won't, replace sleep. The best cinnamon won't fix a diet built on blood sugar crashes. And the best milk thistle won't compensate for chronic stress and burnout. Herbs are powerful allies, but they work best when they're supporting a body that is already moving in the right direction. And that's exactly why we spend most of tonight talking about blood sugar, stress, sleep, and recovery first. Before we move on to solution, I'd love to know something. Out of everything we've talked about tonight, what is your biggest struggle right now? Please type the number that best described you in the chat. Is it number 1, if it's weight gain around the middle? 2, if it's energy crashes and exhaustion? 3, is it cravings? 4, if it's sleep problems or waking during the night? 5, if it's brain fog and poor concentration? Or maybe 6, if it's mood changes or anxiety? Please go ahead and type your number. I will take a sip. Okay, let's have a look. I can see lots of 1s coming through, quite a few 2s as well, lots of 4s and some 5s and 6. Okay. First of all, thank you for sharing. And secondly, I hope tonight has shown you something important. Even though the symptoms might seem completely different on the surface, many of them are connected to the same underlying systems. Blood sugar, stress physiology, sleep, nervous system regulation, hormonal changes. That's why chasing individual symptoms often becomes exhausting. You fix one thing and another appears. You buy a supplement for sleep, then another for cravings, then another for energy, then another for mood. And before you know it, you have a cupboard full of supplements, but you're still not feeling like yourself. What I've learned from working with hundreds of women and with my own body is that the body responds best when we stop chasing symptoms and start supporting the systems underneath them. Because once the foundations improve, many symptoms often improve together. And that's exactly what I want to show you next. How to pull all of this together into practical step-by-step framework that actually fits into real life. So I want to leave you with something practical, because knowledge is wonderful, it's great, but knowledge only changes your life when you actually apply it. And the good news is that you don't need to overhaul, your entire life tomorrow. You don't need another complicated protocol. You don't need 20 new supplements. You don't need to start training twice a day. Sometimes the biggest changes come from getting the basics right. So if I were starting again tomorrow, these are the 6 things I would focus on first. Number 1, protein before coffee. I know this won't be popular with everyone, but if you've taken one thing away from tonight, let it be this. Try eating a protein-rich breakfast before your first coffee. Even a small change can make a huge difference to energy, cravings, and blood sugar stability throughout the day. Number 2, build your meals around protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Not calories, not restrictions, not fear. Think about nourishment. Every meal is a signal to your hormones. But the question is, what signal are you sending? Number 3, have a proactive snack between 2 and 3 p.m. Not because snacking is mandatory, but because many women wait until they're already crashing. Then they reach for sugar because their body is desperate for quick energy. It's much easier to prevent the crash than to recover from it. And number 4, replace some cardio with strength training and walking. Again, I'm not anti-cardio, but many women are already stressed and exhausted, and adding more stress isn't always the answer. Strength training helps preserve muscle mass. Walking helps regulate stress physiology. So both supports healthy aging. Number 5, spend just 10 minutes a day regulating your nervous system. This doesn't need to be complicated. A short walk outside, breathing exercise, sitting in the garden with a cup of tea, a few minutes without your phone. Consistency matters more than perfection. And finally, number 6, choose one herb and be consistent. Not 10 herbs, not 20 supplements. One herb that matches your symptoms and give it time. Because real changes happens through consistency, not through constantly, jumping from one thing to another. Now, if all of this feels simple, that's because it is. Simple doesn't mean ineffective. In fact, the most powerful things we do for our hormones are often surprisingly simple. The challenge is not knowing what to do. The challenge is knowing how to put all of these pieces together in the right order and actually stay consistent with them. And that's exactly what I want to talk about next. Now, if you are anything like the women I work with, you might be thinking, okay, this all makes sense, but how do I actually put into the practice? Because knowing what to do and actually doing it are two very different things. It's one thing to understand blood sugar, it's another thing to know what to eat tomorrow morning. It's one thing to understand cortisol, it's another thing to know how to support your nervous system when life is busy. It's one thing to understand hormones, it's another thing to know which changes will make the biggest difference for your body. And that's exactly what I created the program I'm about to show you. I wanted to create something that takes all of this information and turns into a simple step-by-step roadmap. Not another course that overwhelms you, not another collection of random tips, but a practical system that helps you support your body in the right order. So let me introduce or reintroduce the Natural 4-Week Hormone Reset. This program was created from everything I've learned as a biologist, herbalist, and naturopath and menopause coach, but also from my own personal experience and from supporting hundreds of women through hormonal transition. So let me ask you something. How many of you have ever thought, I know what I should be doing, I just don't know where to start? Or perhaps I've tried so many things that I don't even know what's worth doing anymore. Because that's exactly where so many women find themselves. Not because they're lazy, not because they lack discipline, but because they've been given bits of information from everywhere. A diet from one person, a supplement from another, a fasting protocol from Instagram, a workout plan from YouTube. And before long term, they overwhelmed. And that's exactly why I created these two programs, not to give you more information, but to give you a roadmap. So let's start with the Hormone Load First Aid Kit, because before you can support your body properly, you need to understand what is actually driving your symptoms. Is it blood sugar? Is it chronic stress? Is it poor sleep? Is it nervous system overload? Is it digestion? Is it hormone clearance? Most women don't know, and that's why they spend years throwing random supplements and random symptoms. This program helps you identify where your biggest load is coming from, so you can stop guessing and start focusing on what matters most. Then comes the 4-week hormone reset program. This is where everything comes together. You don't have to figure out what to do. You don't have to wonder which herbs come first. You don't have to spend hours researching. I've already organized everything into a step-by-step process, week by week, in the correct order. It's exactly the same order we talked about tonight. First the nervous system, then blood sugar, then sleep, then hormone support, then sustainable lifestyle habits, weekly action plans, herbal protocols, recipes, nervous system support tools, education, guidance, and most importantly, it's a clarity. Because clarity is what most women are missing. So imagine waking up and knowing exactly what to focus on. Imagine understanding why your body is responding the way it is. Imagine having fewer cravings, more stable energy, better sleep, more confidence, and finally feeling like you are working with your body instead of constantly fighting it. That's what this program is designed to help you to. Now, normally these two programs together are $174, but because you've joined me live tonight, you can get both for $127. That's saving all $47, and this offer is available until the 7th of June. And honestly, if tonight is the first time you've thought, finally, this actually makes sense, then these programs were created for you, because your body doesn't need more punishment. It needs support, it needs nourishment, it needs the right plan, and it needs consistency. That's exactly why these programs, what these programs provide. So that's everything that is included. As you can see, I wanted this to be much more than just another course. I want it to be a complete roadmap, because after working with hundreds of women, I've realized that most women don't actually need more information. They need clarity, they need plan, they need someone to help them understand what their body is asking for and what to focus on first. That's exactly why I combine these two programs together. So the hormone load first aid helps you understand where your body is carrying the greatest load right now. Is it blood sugar, stress, sleep, digestion, hormone clearance, nervous system overload? Instead of guessing, you will have a much clearer starting point. Then the 4-week natural hormone reset shows you exactly what to do next, week by week, step by step, in the correct order. Not in the random orders social media offer teaches. The same orders we've discussed tonight. Support the nervous system, stabilize blood sugar, improve sleep, support hormone metabolism, build sustainable habits. And what I love most about this program is that it's realistic. It isn't about perfection. It's not about being on a diet. It's not about surviving on salads and saying no to every piece of cake, for the rest of your life. It's about understanding your body and supporting it consistently, because consistency beats perfection every single time. Now, I've just placed the link in the chat for you. Please feel free to open it, have a look. And please remember, tonight you receive both programs together for $127. And this masterclass offer is available until the 7th of June. So now, before we finish, I'd love to answer a few of the most common questions I get. Unfortunately, we only have about an hour together tonight, so I probably won't get through every question that comes in live, but I will pick the question I hear most often from women who are struggling with exactly the same things we've discussed this evening. So let's start with the first one. Will this program still help me if I'm not officially in perimenopause yet? Absolutely yes. One of the biggest misconceptions is that women suddenly wake up one morning and they're in perimenopause. The reality is that hormonal changes happen gradually. Many women start noticing changes in their mid-30s or even earlier. Recovery isn't quite the same. Sleep becomes more important. Stress hits harder. Cravings, becomes stronger. Weight becomes easier to gain and harder to lose. The principles we've discussed tonight aren't just about perimenopause. They're about supporting the system that regulates hormones, blood sugar, stress physiology, sleep, digestion, nervous system regulation. These things matter at every age. So whether you are 35, 45, 55 or beyond, the program can still be incredibly valuable. Okay, another question. Do I need to follow a strict diet? No, absolutely not. In fact, one of the reasons I created this program is because I'm tired of seeing women constantly blaming themselves when restrictive diet fails. The goal isn't to eat less and less. The goal is not to remove more and more foods. The goal is to nourish your body properly, to support blood sugar, to support energy, support hormones, support recovery. Okay, another question. Oh, this was quite common. What if I've tried already? Oh, sorry. What if I've already tried everything? This is probably the most common question I hear, and I usually, when women tell me when they've tried everything, what they actually mean is they've tried lots of different things. They've tried fasting, they've tried supplements, they've tried low carb diets, they've tried eating less, they've tried more exercise, more detoxes, cutting things out, etc. But often nobody has ever shown them how to support their body in the right order. That's the difference, because if blood sugar is unstable, sleep is poor, and the nervous system is overwhelmed, another supplement is unlikely to be the thing that changes everything. The body needs the foundations first. That's why the programs focuses on systems, not symptoms. And that's often where women finally begin seeing changes. Okay, and another question. Oh, sorry, I moved the slide. Okay, the last question. How quickly will I see results? And I always answer the honestly. Every woman is different. Some women notice improvements in energy and craving within days. Others notice better sleep first. Some notice changes in digestion. Others notice improvements in mood and resilience. And for some women, the biggest change is simply understanding their body for the first time. What I can tell you is this: the women who do best are not the women who are perfect. They are the women who are consistent, small steps, repeated over time. That's where real changes happens. And if there's one thing I hope you remember from this masterclass, it's this: your body is not broken. It's communicating with you. The cravings, the fatigue, the sleep disruption, the weight gain, the brain fog, they're not signs that your body is failing. They're signals. And once we understand those signals, we can finally start supporting the body in the way it needs. Okay, before we finish tonight, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for spending your evening with me. I know how busy life can be, and the fact that you chose to spend this time learning about your health and your body generally means a lot. I hope you leave tonight with one message above all else. Your body is not broken. It's not working against you. It's not failing you. It's just responding to signals. It's responding to stress. It's responding to sleep. It's responding to blood sugar. It's responding to hormonal environment that may be different from the one it experienced 10 or 20 years ago. And the wonderful thing is that the body is constantly adapting. When we give it the right support, it can respond in incredible ways. Small changes done consistently. And those changes can create remarkable results over time. If tonight resonates with you and you'd like my support, remember that the masterclass offer remains available until the 7th of June. You will find the link in the chat, and I'll also send it to your inbox after the masterclass. And speaking of your inbox, keep an eye on your email over the next few minutes, because I have a little surprise waiting for you as a thank you for joining me live tonight. I think you're going to love it. I hope so. And if any questions come up after we finish, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can always email me. There's my email address on the slide. I personally read every message and I love to hear from you. So thank you again for being here. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.